Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. This is where we talk about the Second Amendment. We talk about civil rights. We talk about activism. We talk about movies. We talk about whatever relating to Second Amendment culture, firearms, you name it. We talk to it. We talk about it here, trying to bring a little bit of what I like to call uncommon sense, because as we all know, common sense is not that common. It's more like common nonsense. But anyway, so that's what we talk about here today, and we really appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you, by the way. I want to let you guys know you guys have been doing a fantastic job of recommending our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. We've seen our numbers grow, and what's been really cool is we've seen the activism grow. You guys are calling legislators. You guys are sending emails and writing legislators. And trust me, not only are we seeing it in our numbers, but we're actually hearing about it from those members who are hearing from you. So please keep it up. Keep telling people, encouraging people to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, continue to get people connected, not just to coffee, but to Battle of the Day, and get people following our live feeds. Folks, this is how we communicate. This is how we roll. This is how we beat back the mainstream media and those who are trying to propagate a message that is about taking away our civil rights. So thank you. And with that, make sure you actually like and share this live feed so that your friends can become our friends and partake and be a part of the conversation. So what are we going to talk about today? Now, if you guys have been following the news lately, you guys know that, we all know that in the midst of all of the conversation about guns and about gun control, that the gun-grabbing left have actually become quite emboldened. They have gone to the point where they are literally willing to say that they want to repeal the Second Amendment. And they're making no bones about it. I mean, they are literally out there, for lack of a better term, marching in the streets saying that they wish to repeal the Second Amendment. They want to do away with it. And they believe that they have a fundamental kind of a reason why. And this is a little bit about kind of the point behind what it is that they believe, why they believe that they need to get rid of the Second Amendment.
You are not going to get a handle on the problem of America's gun culture while there is a constitutional right to own a weapon. Most of the gun crime, by the way, in the country isn't done with AR-15s or the assault weapons that I suspect both of us would like to see banned. They're done with handguns, guns purchased legally and then sold illegally on black or gray markets. So until you at least address that constitutional principle that there is a right to bear an arm, you will not deal with the problem that we have. And what Justice Stevens is saying, I think with a great deal more legal authority than either of us have, is that is a relic of the 18th century that makes very little sense in the world we live in today.
Exactly. See, their whole point, their belief is that there really is no need for a Second Amendment because it's really irrelevant. And what he's talking about is a piece that was penned by former Supreme Court Justice Stevens, where in essence he said that the Second Amendment is a relic of the past, that it's not something that's needed. Well, what I think that the justice fails to understand is, number one, tyrannical governments have not gone out of style. They do still exist. And while one may want to believe that America is not a tyrannical government or does not have a tyrannical government, one only need look at states like California, where you have the attorney general who's basically writing law from their office. Completely ignoring the legislature. Now, mind you, the legislative branch, they're no better. They're completely and utterly ignoring the Constitution and have said as much. Look, we don't care about they've said they don't care about the Constitution because, well, hey, you know what? The courts will sort it out. And they know that being in the Ninth Circuit, they know that any challenge that comes to anything that they want to do is going to take a long time to get through. So they don't care. Their attitude is they're going to do what they want. And So, so once again, that's a tyrannical government. There are many people on the left even that now look at our current administration in Washington, D.C. and would consider them to be tyrannical, who would consider Donald Trump to be tyrannical. I'm not saying that I agree with them, but there are definitely folks out there who have made that claim. The other thing is that there is a way in which to amend the Constitution. If you want to get rid of the Second Amendment, there's a way to do it, right? And the way in which you do it is you write a law. That law has to get a 2/3 approval in both houses of Congress, and then you have to get 3/4 of the states. Now, I don't care how you draw up the electoral math. That is just not going to happen. And I believe that there are many of those on the gun-grabbing left who agree that it's just never going to happen. They don't believe that, quite frankly, although they would love to repeal the Second Amendment, they don't believe that they have to. They really don't, because they believe that, well, hey, we can just ignore what the Supreme Court has said. And, Mr. Morning Joe here pretty much says that.
When you think of someone like Stephen Paddock, the shooter in the murderer in Las Vegas, he bought an arsenal of AR-15s. Now, what is constitutionally the limiting principle when you have a Second Amendment that prevents someone like him, no psychiatric record, he's on no list of presumed terrorists, from purchasing the kind of arsenal that allowed him to murder as many people as he did in about 10 minutes time? We are the only country in the world, at least in the developed world, that has the kind of gun violence that we do. 11,000 or so homicides, firearm homicides a year. Britain, France, Japan, countries where guns are legal, by the way, they're just hard to get. They don't have that kind of gun violence. The distinction here is this constitutional right to purchase weapons at least of some kinds, in almost unlimited quantities. And I don't see how that changes until you start thinking about doing what John Paul Stevens, with much greater legal experience than either of us, has.
Well, Brett, though, you're making, if you don't forgive me for saying this, I don't mean to sound condescending, because Ted Cruz certainly sounded condescending to me, but you're making the same mistake that Ted Cruz made.
Oh, my God.
I know. When I asked him whether Americans had a constitutional Second Amendment right to purchase an AR-15, to purchase those sort of arsenals. And it's the big lie that NRA lobbyists in Washington, D.C. push out, and also other gun lobbyists push out. Americans do not have that right under the Second Amendment.
So, all right, so let's just be clear. You guys know that was Morning Joe, who claims to be a conservative, but hasn't espoused anything conservative that I can think of, either while he was in office or since he started working for, the mainstream media. I think he's been fully indoctrinated. But see, that's the perspective they have is that, well, no, they don't have a right to that. They just don't. The Second Amendment does not say what it says. We can infringe upon it. We can control it. We can restrict it. We can make it so that you can't own certain firearms. We can make it so that you can't buy ammunition, or you don't have a right to buy ammunition. We can make it so that there are all of these things that will now make all of these nonviolent things that will now make you prohibited. Yes, we can have secret court hearings where your gun rights will be taken away. Yes, we can use city and local zoning ordinances to basically eliminate and put out of business firearms retailers. Yes, we can restrict your speech and make it so that you can't talk about guns, you can't advertise guns. That all of these things that they are doing because they believe that they have the right to do it, well, because they believe that the Second Amendment is killing us. That's what they believe. They believe that they have a right to do this. Not only do they believe they have the ability, but they believe that they have the utter right to ignore it. And the reason why they believe they have that right is because the Supreme Court has refused to hear any Second Amendment cases since they decided McDonald in 2010. Folks, that's 8 years ago. 8 years ago, they made the last decision on the Second Amendment. They still haven't ruled on a whole host of things because they keep voting to say, nah, we don't want to hear that. Nah, we don't want to hear that. Nah, we don't want to hear that. Which, by the way, doesn't mean that they agree with it. It just means that, well, no, that's not a case that we're going to take up. But that's why we have to keep fighting. We have to keep fighting because we know they're not going to be able to repeal the Second Amendment. But they are chipping away at it. Lower courts are making decisions and completely and utterly ignoring the precedent set in Heller and McDonald. They're completely ignoring it. And legislatures and local governments are picking up on this. Because they're picking up on this, they're passing laws that when one reads the Second Amendment, when one reads Heller and reads McDonald, they wonder what the heck is going on. Justice Thomas, in one of his dissenting opinions recently, where they decided not to hear a case, was utterly frustrated because he recognized that courts like the Ninth Circuit once again are using they are ignoring precedent, they are ignoring judicial process and judicial history in order to do something just because, well, they can. So, do I believe the Second Amendment will be repealed? No. At least not in the literal sense. But if we are not careful, if we are not fighting to make sure that we are pushing as many cases to the Supreme Court as possible, to force them to hear some of these cases, I believe that we could see the Second Amendment gutted until it's a shell of what it was intended to be, which was the protection of a constitutionally enumerated civil right. So that's why we need to keep fighting. And that's why we need you guys to continue to be with us. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being a part in the fight for civil rights. Once again, this is the Firearms Policy Coalition, the home in the fight for your civil rights. Remember, we have got to use them or we are going to lose them. Take care and stay free.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.